you really just need a pair of tennis shoes and put the left foot in front of the other, and away you go. So my goal was to run a 5K, and January 1st I started a Couch to 5K program. If you're looking to run and you've never done it, or you want to know somewhere to start, I highly recommend it. It's a free app, Couch to 5K, and I honestly, on January 1st, I did the first workout, which was run for 60 seconds and walk for 90. And they're all like 30-minute workouts. So it was like 8 sets or 8 intervals of that. And I was gassed, and I thought, I'm never going to finish this. And within about 8 weeks, I was up to running 3 miles, and it was a slow 3 miles, I'll tell you that. So that slowly worked on, once I ran a 5K, I said I had to be able to run it. I had to stop and walk. I wasn't going to go enter a race anywhere somewhere.
Right.
So by April, I felt good enough to be able to run the full 3 miles, and ever since then, I just keep working to try and get my time down. So tomorrow morning, me and my wife, while everybody else is letting their turkey start to hit the oven, we're going to head out to Avon and run with probably about 1,500 other people through the streets of Avon, and then we'll pick up the rest of our day. So that's probably the highlight of my Thanksgiving break coming up.
Hey, I hear you.
And other than that, I plan to eat like everybody else who's not dieting.
Exactly. No, see, I'm not at that point, man. I'm still being very hardcore about everything, because what you said at the beginning, not happening to this cat. I refuse to put this much work, this much effort. I refuse to put this much work into getting back and actually better than I was before. There's no way. When I go back, it's because I intend on never ever being in shape again. I at that point, then we can go, because it's been a ton of I gotta tell you what's a shame about it too. Well, what the hell, man? It's the holiday show. We're talking about whatever we want here. The shame of it is that I look now and I still have a lot of work to do to get. My goal is it's not just weights, because I'm trying to reach some athletic achievements as well, but probably 15, 20 pounds in the end of this thing I'll still end up losing before I'm done here. But I look back now and I'm almost mad at myself. And for those of you guys listening out there that have goals, be mad at yourself for me if you do this same thing, because I look at the level of actual shape that I'm in now, not just what you look like in the mirror, but the actual athletic shape that I'm in and the things that I'm able to do. And I'm so mad at myself for wasting I don't want to say my youth, because I'm only, 35, but wasting 25, because had I put this level of work into what I was doing then, you and I wouldn't be talking now, because my life would have probably went in a little bit of a different path than the way it ended up. But that's just things that you learn when you're 35 and you go, damn, man. But it does kick me in the ass, because I'm like, man, if I'd have been like this 10 years ago. Anyways, point being, and I'm with you. Instead of the road work, I did the elliptical, but I did a complete, and this is why I can't mess around on the holidays yet, because I did a complete lifestyle 360. I mean, I mentioned that I quit smoking, even though that was prior to that. But not only that, completely overhauled the diet, completely changed the workout routine. I'm hitting the weights 3 days a week. I'm on the elliptical 6 days a week. And then I also, not to give them a free plug, but hell, it's life-changing to me, DDP yoga. If any of you guys out there are wrestling fans and you've ever heard of that, oh yeah, Diamond Dallas Page, forget that you're a wrestling fan. I'm going to tell you that thing is legit. And like you just mentioned about how you start with 30 seconds here and 60 seconds there and build up, it was the same thing with that. I was doing the beginner stuff. A buddy of mine was the one that told me to start doing it. And the beginner program, the very first little 15-minute thing that you do, I've never had been drenched, except for the actual wrestling matches, and just, I've never been as exhausted and drenched in sweat as I was after the stupid, you were standing still stretching. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm texting people going, dude, this is making me this sweating, this exhausted, doing these little, I'm stretching. And he goes, you ain't seen nothing yet. One of my buddies, he goes, you're just starting on this thing. But it's funny, because you get to the end of the year, and things that were the hardest thing in the world for me at the beginning of the year are like, man, I don't even do that anymore, because I'm so far beyond that. I'm at the point now where the hardest workouts that they've got, that's my everyday. That's my everyday regular, and then I'm actually making them harder to try to get it. But you don't realize that it really does take doing the little ones, and then all of a sudden you go, damn, I forgot I was getting that strong, or I was getting that much stamina or whatever. So it's a journey, and it's cool like you are to sit at the back end of it and look back and go, man, put some work in there, man. So for those of you guys with the first coming around, and you're one of those people that say, oh, I always make things and then I drop off. I used to be that guy too, but you don't have to be, because you can make it happen. And the only difference is don't go back, because as Mike said, it starts to be a pain in the neck to come back every year and bounce back and forth and go, man, now I got to lose it again. So this time I'm keeping it off.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one story for me is at the first of the year, I was all about making a lifestyle change, and I had someone tell me that it's best to keep a food diary. So I've kept track of every calorie I've drank. But the big thing for me was when I saw how many calories it took to burn in exercise and how hard it was to burn those calories. And I kid you not, I live in front of a McDonald's, and that was like my kryptonite for years. But when you realize how hard it is and how much work it takes to, burn 300, 400, or 500 calories, and then you look up and you see McDonald's and you think, man, it's not worth it. And it gets easy to drive by after a while when you realize it takes you a half hour or 45 minutes or an hour to burn off that one greasy, disgusting cheeseburger.
Yes. I've become that guy. And my friends, obviously, you realize, I'm talking about running with guys who are high-level athletes and into what their body looks like. I mean, I had guys doing that to me all the time, and I'd be like, man, I'm not that guy. And I don't do as far as you did. I don't write it all down. I just keep it mentally, and I do exactly what you did. And my son, he's getting into playing high school football and stuff like that, and he wants to get himself in better shape, and he understands that there's a difference between how you look in your clothes and being in athletic shape. Some people get those confused, because for some people being in shape is just how you look, and I'm looking at it from a different level. But I do what you just said every time, and you feel bad because the kid's 16. You don't want to tell the kid, hey, don't eat the cookies, but you go, hey man, just between you and me, keep in mind that just two of those two cookies you just ate, man, an hour on my elliptical just to get rid of those two cookies that you just ate. Like, it undoes and I explained to him how those little things undo your whole day, and you don't even realize it. Like, I used to have a buddy. He was a personal trainer at the gym, big jacked up guy, and he said, dude, it's fish in the barrel with these women, especially that come in for a personal trainer at the beginning of the year, because they'll come in and train with me 5 days a week, and then they'll go out on Friday and they'll drink like a fish, and they'll come back in on Monday, and after a couple of weeks they'll go, hey man, I weigh as much or more than I did when I started. How come I'm not losing weight? And he would go, did you go out drinking last weekend? Yep, that's it. One night of drinking undid your whole week of everything that you just did. And then all of a sudden you realize, man, you mean everything I did this week? That one night of going out and having some drinks at the bar, boom, undid it all. And that's where you've really got to adjust your lifestyle. Otherwise, you're burning yourself up doing work for nothing.
It's true. I can see how you fell an hour behind on your schedule for today now.
Brother.
We just did 15 minutes of riveting dieting talk.
Hey, you know what? This is a sports show, and last I checked, being in shape and athletic is part of a sports endeavor. So this is the holiday edition of the show, and as I said earlier, if you're still listening at this point, brother, you're all in. You're not going anywhere, so we're good. We're dealing with
Friday week, you can have me back, and we can talk stuffing and gravy.
I'm just saying, we've got to, at this point, if we're 2 hours and 10 minutes into this thing, if you're still listening, nothing you and I say, Mike, if they're still listening, nothing we say is running them off, because they're here for the duration at this point. So let's help them out.
People listen to this? I thought you and I just talked on the phone once a week.
Shut up, man.
Other people are listening? I should tell my friends.
People pay me for this. You don't let the secret out, man. Shh. Come on now, man.
I didn't know that. I just thought we talked on the phone.
He's like, I just thought we were phone buddies talking tribe for an hour a week, man. What's up, man?
I thought it was odd that we had an appointment, but, hey, it's cool. Whatever works for you.
Oh, I love it. Let's have some fun. Let's talk Indians. All seriousness, man. You had some. I sent the tweet out. I said, Indians, are you listening? Mike Brandenberry's got some scenarios for you. And Jeff Gorman and I were talking a little tribe yesterday as well, because we were looking around and just ask your thoughts. Obviously not a complete game changer, but the White Sox are definitely putting their best foot forward to try to close the gap. As we keep talking about the Tribe, the Royals, and the Tigers, the White Sox are doing their best to say, hey, there's another team here that's trying to win this division as well.
Yeah, for sure, Jerry. And I think, you can use the old cliche that, pennants aren't necessarily won in November and December, and, the teams that spend the most money don't necessarily, win the next season. We've seen all that, but I think at this point you can clearly say that as the Tigers and the Royals see some parts probably leave town, I guess maybe not officially from the Tigers yet, but at this point I think it's fair to assume that Max Scherzer is not coming back. They've said that Torrey Hunter is not coming back, and the Royals have already lost Billy Butler. So, at this point, those two teams are kind of, taking at least a small step back, if not bigger. The White Sox are making up ground, and I think at this point, it's a far ways from spring training still, but certainly the White Sox have closed the gap now. What moves the Indians and, the Tigers and the Royals all make, in the next 3 months will kind of determine maybe as to where you slot all four of those teams. But I think the White Sox are definitely doing their best to try and get into the conversation so far.
Yeah, that was what I was saying, and you definitely want to keep an eye on that as things continue to progress. And the Indians, you mentioned, all these other teams, and that's funny because they see that same window of opportunity you and I have talked about, and here the Tribe sits. And we, obviously, as you and you see why the Indians are patient at the beginning, because you start to see the crazy stuff go out first. I mentioned for those that were listening earlier in the week, if you're an Indians fan or just a baseball fan like I am that doesn't like the whole thing as far as the system and how it works, always a fun Monday wake up when you see the big money teams spending as much money on a guy as you spend on all 24 of them. You know what I mean? And that's another place that the Indians continue to compete. But we saw some of the big ones coming off the board here early this week, and there's some other ones that are getting close to finalizing stuff. Where do you think the Indians are with things? We knew they weren't going to be a big money player in free agency. I'm hearing all kinds of names. I know Chase Headley was a name a lot of people had mentioned. Now I saw this morning, Hoynesy is reporting that that's not really on the Indians' radar there, and but there are still some guys. Kendrys Morales. My thing is if people that didn't want Victor are going, well, you got the same backup problem over there. Well, Morales is the same thing, and my thing with that is the doggone Tribe has not signed Kendrys Morales the last couple of off seasons, and it's like, what are we just going to wait? Every year that goes by, maybe now he's more primed for a bounce back season. But like I was all about Kendrys Morales 2 years ago, and even as a take a chance if you can get him for cheap last year in the middle of the season, but. It's just funny. It is like 3 off seasons in a row that he's been high atop the list of people the Indians are interested in, and he gets a
I don't think Kendrys Morales and Josh Willingham have been talked about as much in the towns that they actually played in as they have here in Cleveland in the last 2 or 3 years.
That's a good one. Yeah, exactly. Those two. And here's Morales out there once again as supposedly not only being an interest of the Indians, but having conversations with them here in the offseason as well. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Kendrys Morales? Again, he's 3 years older than he was when he was really intriguing to me 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked several times about the $6 million man and how the Indians should avoid, the veteran who makes, somewhere probably between $3 and $7 or $8 million because they're an average player or a slightly above average player, and it's very likely that you can find a young player in your system to give you most of that production. And on top of feeling like both of those guys are $6 million men, I also then question how do they fit in their team. Like you said, bringing Kendrys Morales in, then you add him to what would be a log jam in your first base and DH situation. And I've talked to a number of people in the last couple of weeks, and ever since the one tweet by Ken Rosenthal was leaked about potentially the Indians trying to trade Nick Swisher, people make it sound like that's a foregone conclusion, or like that's so easy. We've had comments on our site. This is, well, the Indians are going to trade Swisher. Really? I mean,